श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम् ओम सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांतिः नहि घटतज्ञानयोः इव व्यवसायानुव्यवसायोः अपि विषयत्व विषयत्व व्यवस्थापकं वैजात्यम् अस्ति व्यक्तिभेदातिरिक्त वैधर्म्य अनभ्युमात्. See, like the ghata jnana, see, we have pot and the knowledge of pot. There the pot is the object and the knowledge is the objectifier. Now this is not the case with vyavasayatmaka and anusayatmaka jnana. Vyavasayatmaka jnana, this is pot. Anuvayasayatmaka, knowledge that follows the knowledge of vyavasayatmaka jnana, which is I know the pot, I have the knowledge of pot. So here both are knowledges. So there is pot and there is a knowledge. So therefore there is object and subject. Now here both are knowledge. Therefore there is no different classes. Vaijati means different classes. So we don't accept any other differences other than the Vyakti. The differences in the Vyakti. Therefore, Vishitva avachedaka rupeneva Vishitva abhyavame ghatayoho api tad bhavapatir avisheshat. If you accept something more than the Vishitva avachedaka rupeneva Vishitva abhyavame. Vishitva avachedaka means jnana is Vishaya. Vishitva avachedaka is jnanatva. In that jnanatva form, if you accept it to be Vishayi, then even in pot you will have the same problem, etc. So he says, Gatatva, see, let us see that. Pot, see, knowledge is Vishaya, okay? Vishayatva avachedaka is a Vishayi. Vishayatva avachedaka for knowledge is a knowledgeness, okay? That is okay. Now, if you accept it for pot, what happens, sir? Pot is Vishaya. Vishayatva avachedaka, the limiting agent for pot is potness. For limiting object for pot is a potness. Limiting agent for knowledge is knowledgeness. Limiting agent for pot is potness. What will happen? Pot will become the object and potness will become the subject. Is there anywhere where we have seen pot as the subject? Pot as the one which understands the things? No. Therefore, that will be a confusion. No. Okay, fine. Yata ghata vyavharartham ghata jnanam abhipeyate. Tata ghata jnana vyavharartham ghata jnana vishim jnanam abhipeyam. Vyavaharasya vyavahartavya jnana sadhyatvad iti chet. No, you don't understand the problem. The problem is like this. The opponent says, ghata vyavaharartham ghata jnanam abhipeyate. See, we accept the knowledge of pot for the transaction of pot. If you want to do some transaction with reference to the pot, you have to know what pot is. Without that, how can you do the transaction? So, I have the knowledge of pot. I'll be able to do the potness, the transaction with pot. Similarly, he says, Ghata jnana vyavaharartham. Do you have the knowledge of pot? Yes, I have the knowledge of pot. How do you know that? To say, I have the knowledge of pot means you are transacting with reference to the knowledge of pot. So, that for that transaction, the knowledge of pot is necessary. Do you get it? See, for the transaction of pot, the knowledge of pot is necessary. For the transaction of knowledge of pot, the knowledge of pot is necessary. So, vyavaharasya vyavahartavya jnana sadhyatvat, because for the transaction, whatever is to be transacted, that knowledge of that transactor is necessary. This is the simple logic. Iti chet, if we say so, we say ka anupapattihi udbhavita. What is the problem you are presenting now? Who you? Devanam priyena swaprakashavadinah. Devanam priyena, you people who are very close, dear to Devas, you logicians, what are you trying to tell to us? Because we are swaprakashavadinah. We are people who accept the self-effulgence of knowledge. To us, what are you trying to say? Kanupati, what is the impossibility you are saying? Because knowledge is self-effulgent. You don't need another knowledge to eliminate the first knowledge. Then there will be a series of knowledge. First knowledge eliminated by second knowledge eliminated by third knowledge eliminated by fourth knowledge, ... infinity. So he says, Nahi vyavahartavya bhinnam api jnana vishesham vyavahar hetutavachchedam gauravat. See, you cannot accept another different knowledge to be limiting agent for this knowledge. Knowledge, pot, knowledge, knowledgeness. For that, I say no. Knowledgeness is limited by something else. Then there will be a problem. There will be again ad infinitum. For that limiting agent, another. For that limiting agent, another. In which way you will never have a knowledge of pot itself. You can never transact with reference to the knowledge of pot. Tathacha, and not just that. Ishvara jnanavat, yogi jnanavat, prameyam iti jnanavaccha. Svena eva, so vyaharo vattau na jnana antarkalpana avakasha. See, for the knowledge of Ishvara, there is no other knowledge which needs to be valid proof for establishment of knowledge. For the knowledge of yogi also, there is no other validity needed. Similarly, for the knowledge, this is pot, that is prameyam iti jnana, knowledge of the object. For that knowledge also, you don't need any other validity to establish that knowledge, because so sveneva swavyahara upattau, the knowledge by itself is valid. It doesn't depend upon anything else. It's like a lamp which does not need another lamp to illumine the first lamp. So jnana antra kalpana anavakasha, there is no need for any other. Jnana antra kalpana na avakasha, there is no other need for any other knowledge, imagining any other knowledge for the first knowledge. Anuvyavasayasappi ghataඥāna vyavahara hetutvam kim ghataඥāna jnanatvena kim va ghataඥānatvena viti vichinim. See, okay, you said anuvyavasaya jnana. Okay, for the anuvyavasaya jnana also you said ghataඥāna vyavahara hetutvam. See, you said you accept anuvyavasaya jnana. See, we don't accept anuvyavasaya jnana, we already made it clear. Only the first jnana is enough, because knowledge is self-effulgent. You, logician, accept anuvyavasaya jnana. How do you accept anuvyavasaya jnana? Do you accept it, the limiting agent, as a pot knowledge, knowledgeness, or pot knowledgeness itself? What is the limiting agent? Is it the transaction, is it possible because of pot knowledge itself, or pot knowledge? Meaning knowledge of pot. You have to understand this. You have to explain us. Ubhayasyapi tatra satvat. Because pot knowledge in the anuvavasaya, in the second stage of knowledge, you have both pot knowledge and knowledge of pot. Both. Not just knowledge of pot. You have knowledge of pot also. Therefore, tatra ghatavyavahare ghataඥānatveneva hetutayaha kriptatvat teneva rupena ghataඥānavyavahare api hetutau upattau na ghataඥānaඥānatvam hetu avachedakam gauravat manabhavacha. See, when there is a simple way of understanding, when we have two knowledges, one is a pot knowledge and the other is pot knowledge. When you can do the transaction, when you can manage the transaction with the first knowledge, which is pot knowledge itself, why do you want to accept pot knowledge? When there is a simple way, why do you want to complicate it? Therefore, he says, tathacha na anuvyavasaya siddhir ekasya eva vyavasayasya vyavasayatari vyavasaye cha vyavahara janakatva upatte iti triputi pratyakshvadina prabhakaraha. Tathacha, therefore, na anuvyavasaya siddhir ekasya eva vyavasayasya. Therefore, the prabhakara siddhanta people say, the people who follow the Purvamimamsa of Prabhakara school, Guru Mata, they say, for one Vyavasaya Jnana, there is no multiple levels, which is a Vyavasayatari. Vyavasayatari means the knower of definite knowledge, Vyavasaye, the object of knowledge, definite knowledge, then Vyavasaye means object of definite knowledge. Vyavasaye means the means of that definite knowledge. There, Vyavahara Janakatva Upatte iti. So that Vyavasaya Jnana itself, when that definitive knowledge itself is able to manage all these three, you don't need to accept Anuvyavasaya Jnana to establish anything. Upanishadastu. But what is your standpoint? You please tell us. If you say, we Vedantins, Upanishada means Vedantins. What we Vedantins say is Manyante. This is what we accept. So, Prakasha, Jnana Rupa Eva Atma. Na Swaprakasha, Jnana Ashraya, Kartrukarma Virodhena, Tad Bhana Anuvattehe. See, we accept knowledge to be, the self to be self-effulgent. Okay? The self to be self-effulgent knowledge form. What Vedantis accept as self is a self-effulgent knowledge form. Okay? Now, it is not a substratum for knowledge. Self is not a locus for knowledge. Self itself is knowledge. That is what we accept. And that self is self-efficient. Knowledge is self-efficient. Therefore, if you don't accept this way, then kartru karma virodha. There is the self itself will be doer, the self itself will be the experiencer. That kind of problem will be there. Not just that if you accept knowledge to be different, for this reason, to avoid this karma kartru virodha, if you say knowledge is different and self is different, then you will fall in the trap which we saw in the previous discussion. In the introduction of 17th shloka, Avinashitu tad vidhiye nasatvam tatam. For that introduction, we said, Natu etadrishasya satah jnanat bhede parichinnatva apattehe jnanatkatvam abhipeyam. So, if you accept the jnana to be, the knowledge to be different from sat, existence, self, then it will be limiting the self. Therefore, you have to accept the self to be of the form of knowledge. Now, tacha anadhyasikam anyatha jadatvapatte. You should have to also accept that knowledge to be non-superimposed. If you accept the knowledge to be superimposed, then the self is not of the nature of knowledge. Therefore, the self will become non-self, inert. Therefore, similarly here also he says, jnana bhinnatve ghadadivad jadatvena kalpitatva apattescha. If you accept it to be different from knowledge, then it will become inert. Whatever is non-self is inert, and it will become superimposed also. Now, knowledge will become superimposed. Swaprakasha jnana matra swarupo api atma avidya upahita sakshi tvichyate. Though the self, you mean the self is self-effulgent? Yes. It is always shining, ever shining? Yes, no doubt. Then I should be able to experience it. I don't see the self. I don't see anything shining. If you ask, then we say, Swaprakasha jnana matra swarupo api Atma. Though Atma is self-effulgent knowledge form, still avidya upahita sakshi tyuchate. With the embodiment of avidya, it is called as sakshi. Avidya vritti avachinna chaitanya sakshi tyuchate. Avidya upahita sakshi tyuchate. We say, with reference to the avidya embodiment, it is called as sakshi. And with reference to the vrittimad antakaranopaitah pramata ityuchate, with reference to the thought, thought associated mind, which is the embodiment of self, it becomes a pramata, knower. What is knower? Knower is a thought associated mind, which is the limiting agent of self. What is sakshi? Witnesser? The ignorance, which is the limiting agent of self. Normally what we say is, if you accept antakarana also as avidya, then avidya avachina chaitanya as sakshi, as avidya avachina chaitanya as jiva pramata, and avidya vritti avachina chaitanya as sakshi. That is how we differentiate. Therefore he says, tasya chakshuradini karanani, and tasya, for that pramata, for that knower. Who is the knower? The thought associated mind, which is the embodiment of self, is the knower. So, he says, for that knower, chakshuradini karanani, the eyes etc. are the instruments. Now, Sachakshuradi Dwarena. Now he is coming into the Vedanta Paribhasha discussion. Sachakshuradi Dwara Antakarna Parinamena Gadadim Vyapya Tadakara Bhavati. Now, the mind, what happens to the mind is the mind transforms itself into thought function and travels through the sense organ and engulfs the object. So, Antakarna Avachana Chaitanya, Vritti Avachana Chaitanya, and Vishya Avachana Chaitanya, you have three Chaitanyas, three consciousness, three different levels of association of consciousness. One is a mind associated consciousness, the other is a thought function associated consciousness, the third is the object associated consciousness. Now, the mind associated consciousness transforms itself into thought associated consciousness and travels to the pot associated consciousness and engulfs the pot associated consciousness. Now, at this point of time, ekasmin cha antakarana pariname ghata avachana chaitanyam antakarana avachana chaitanyam cha ekaloli bhavapannam bhavati. At this point of time, what happens is the pot associated consciousness and the mind associated consciousness becomes one. When the mind associated consciousness, which is transforming into thought associated consciousness, travels to the object associated consciousness and engulfs the object associated consciousness, and the thought function transforms into the object. The transformation of a thought function into object, because it is engulfing the whole pot, like the water which is channelized and which is filled in a bucket or something. It takes the form of the bucket. If the bucket is in square, it will fill in square. If it is in circle, the water also will fill in circle. So the thought function fills the bucket kind of a pot. It engulfs the pot. So the thought function transforms itself into pot. Now what happens? This state where the pot associated consciousness and the mind associated consciousness are non-different, at that point of time I see the pot. I have the knowledge of the pot. Tada gadavachana chaitanyam pramatra bhedat swa ajnanam nashayad aproksham bhavati. Now when at this point of time the pot associated consciousness becomes one with the mind associated consciousness, the knower associated consciousness, at that point of time the ignorance which is veiling the pot associated consciousness or object associated consciousness is destroyed. At that point of time I gain the knowledge of the object, immediate knowledge of the object. Ghatam cha swavachedakam swatadatmyadhyasad bhasiyati. The pot, what happens to it is the swavachedakam. See, potness, the consciousness is identified with the pot. The pot is not identified with the consciousness. The consciousness is not identified with the pot. If consciousness becomes identified with the pot at that point of time, then what happens? The knowledge of pot itself, I will be gaining the knowledge of self. But the pot becomes identified with the consciousness also. That is another problem. It is not one way, it is both ways. So I see the pot as an object, existence. Therefore, antakarana parinamascha vrittyakshyo ati swachah swavacchinnena eva chaitanyena vasyata iti antakarana vritti ghatanam aparokshata. See, this what happens is the mind is associated with consciousness. It travels to the sense organ which is associated with consciousness. Thought function. The thought function travels to the sense organ which is associated with consciousness. Okay, it reaches the object. At that point of time, it is like a missile. The moment the missile touches the object, what happens? It bursts. Meaning, it removes the avarana. It removes the veiling. When it removes the veiling, what happens is the light which is produced by this missile of a thought function, which is consciousness is behind this thought function. Consciousness as thought function associated consciousness. Thought function is the missile head and behind is the consciousness which is the illuminer. So what happens is this consciousness illumines the object. This is with respect to the external object. When you turn the mind inwards, okay, when you turn the mind inwards, the thought function turns inwards, it goes to the self in the heart cave. So it removes the thought function. When it touches the object, whatever is the veiling, that veiling is destroyed. Now with respect to the object, the consciousness behind this thought function will illuminate. But since the self is self-effulgent, it does not depend upon the external consciousness. The self shines by itself. This is the difference. Now, antakarana parinamascha vrityaksho ati swachah. The thought function is very pure. The transformation of mind, which is thought function, is very pure. And it is always associated with consciousness, and it is illumined by that consciousness itself. This is the difference between antakarana vritti ghatanam aparokshata. This is the way the thought function is illumined and the pot is illumined. Tadetad akaratrayamaham janami ghatamiti. So, when I understand this, the pot associate consciousness, the thought function associate consciousness, and the mind associate consciousness, I have the knowledge. When they are in the same level, then I have the knowledge, I know the pot. Dhasaka chaitanyasya ekarupatvepi ghatam prati vritti apekshatuvat pramatrata. See, though the consciousness is same everywhere, mind associate consciousness, thought function associate consciousness, pot associate consciousness, everywhere the consciousness is same. Now, with reference to the objects, what happens is there is a dependence upon thought function. Therefore, because there is a different dependence upon thought function, the mind becomes pramata. The mind associated consciousness becomes a pramata, knower. But I am watching the mind and I am watching the transformation, which is thought function also. At that point of time, there is no dependence upon thought function. That is, antakarana vritti pratitu vritti anapekshatvat sakshitva iti viveka. With reference to the thought function, I am not dependent upon anything. Therefore, I am the witness for that thought function. This is the difference. For the object, you need a thought function. Therefore, the mind becomes knower. For knowing the thought function as the object, there is no thought function needed. Therefore, the self is the avidya upayita chaitanya. That becomes a avidya upayita chaitanya becomes a sakshi witness. Advaita Siddhanta Bindaucha Vistara. This is explained in detail in the text called Advaita Siddhi and Siddhanta Bindu, both written by this Acharya. Advaita Siddhi is a beautiful text which is written. See, there is a text called Shatadushani by Vedanta Deshika. He is a great Acharya of Vishtadvaita school, Vaishnava school. And based on his condemnation on Advaita, Acharya called Vyasaraja, belonging to the dual school of thought, Dvaita school of thought, he wrote a text called Nyayamrita. And that Nyayamrita is condemned by Acharya Madhusudan Saraswati Bhagavan in his text called Advaita Siddhi. It's a dependent text. It is based on the Nyayamrita. And the second text, Siddhanta Bindu, that is a text which is a commentary upon the Acharya's Bhagavan Bhashikara's text, small text called Shloki, Dasha Shloki. A small text, Dasha Shloki, 10 shlokas. On that, he wrote a commentary called Siddhanta Bindu. Many of the topics which are covered in 108 topics of Advaita Siddhi are presented in a non-categorized way. That is the difference between Siddhanta Bindu and Advaita Siddhi. Yasma evam pragukta nyayena. See, we have thus far established one thing. What? Nityaha vibhuhu asamsari sarvada ekarupascha atma. We have established Atma to be eternal. We have established Atma to be all-pervading, omnipresent and omniscient. And we have established the Atma to be not a samsari and always of one non-dual form. Now, tasma, therefore, tannasha shankaya swadharme yuddhe prak pravrittasya tava tasmad upratihi na yukta. Therefore, because of the fear of destroying that self, you said, I won't fight. Which is your duty. You said, I won't do my duty. Because of the fear of this fight. This destruction of self. Now you have understood this. Self is not going to be destroyed. Therefore, Yukta iti yuddha abhyunignya bhagavanaha tasmad yuddhas. Therefore you fight. This is not a rule. He is not giving an order. Fight. Go. No. He is only reiterating what was happening in Arjuna's mind before this confusion. He is just reiterating. He is just giving his acceptance. Okay. You are ready for fight now. That's okay. You now understood what the truth is. The self is not destroyed. Therefore you can fight. He is giving his permission, but not in the way permission. He is okay. Permission. You can say permission. Okay, there is no trouble here. You were confused. Now the confusion is removed because you accept me as a guru, and I am saying you have my permission. So abhyunignya. Arjunasya swadharme yuddhe pravrittasya tava uparatir karanam shokamoho. See, Arjuna, you were involved in your duty of fighting the war, and there you went back from fighting the war because of the confusion, sorrow and delusion. Now, taucha vichara janitena vijnanena bharitav. And those two, which is the sorrow and delusion, they are negated through the knowledge, immediate knowledge, which is gained through inquiry. Therefore, apavade utsargasya sthitiriti nyayena yudhyasvaiti anuvado navidhi. So, apavade, when there is a negation of the negation, then the general rule follows. See, there is a general rule, there is a negation, and for that negation, there is another negation. So, when there is a negation is negated, then the general rule follows. When you say general rule, then we have exception and there is exception. Okay, negation is exception. Okay, now when there is a general rule, when there is an exception, that exception is exempted, then general rule will take its root. Therefore, here when he says fight, it is not a rule. It is just whatever you are doing, you are about to do, you just continue with it. That's what he is saying. So, it's just a permission. So, he like this. See, this we normally use in grammar. That is why he is going to bring grammar. He brought in a simple sutra where we, in Rama, etc., guna and all we do, in Rama, Ramaha, there is guna, Akasavarne Dirga, and with reference to Nadito, etc., we did this. So that would have been fine, but he is bringing in little complicated thing for something else. We will see that also. See, generally, A is chased by B. A wants to kill B. He is moving stealthily. Like, see, there is a mouse. This is Tom Jerry. Okay, there is this Jerry mouse, and it's chased by Tom, the cat. Now, Jerry is walking and Tom is moving behind him stealthily. At that point of time, this dog, what it does is, it hits this Tom cat and the Tom cat falls away. Now, at this point, is there any problem for Jerry to go find his food? No. Jerry is not stopped from eating his cheese. So, that is how here also there is a rule. The rule is about to be prevented by this exception, and that exception is negated by another exception. Therefore, rule is doing its job. Here, yatha karta karno kriti. See, like that, this fellow was about to fight. There was a confusion, and that confusion is removed. Then you can fight now. That is what is preventing you from fight. Now you can do that. So, like, he is giving an example. Yatha karta karno kriti iti utsarge. There is a sutra karta karno kriti. The krudanta prayoga kriti. In krudanta prayoga, there is a sutra. In 6th case, you have this karta and karma. In the meaning of karta and karma, the subject and the object, you can do this 6th case. That's a general rule. Now, there, ubhaya prapto karmani, when these things, karta and karma, both are going to be applied for this krudanta shabda, at that point of time, in the 6th case, only karma will take karmani, only karma will take place and not karta, not the subject, only in the object meaning it will be used. At that point, this is an exception. At that point, there is a vartika. This is not a sutra. There is a vartika which says akakarayoho stri pratyayoho prayoge neti vaktavyam. Aka and a. There are two words ending with aka and a. For this, in the feminine case, stri pratyaha. In feminine case, what happens? Prayoge. When you are doing it in feminine case, using the feminine case, then neti vaktavyam. You should not apply this rule of ubhaya prapto karmani, the second rule. So what happens when you don't apply the second rule? The first rule functions properly without any obstacle. Therefore, tatacha. Therefore, what happens? Mukshoho brahmanaha jigyasa iti atra apavada apavadi. There is a word mukshoho brahmano jigyasa. In this way, there is a word. brahmano jigyasa. Mukshu brahmano jigyasa. Jnatum ichha jigyasa. Sannanta prayoga. Jna jna jignya. Then jigyasa. Jigyasa. Jigyasa it becomes. Okay. Akaranta. So jigyasa. Okay. Now at this point what happens? Punar utsarga sthite. When the utsarga comes, kartru karmanoho kriti iti aneneva sashti. With this kartru karmanoho kriti, this sutra, first sutra, you will get a sixth case ending. When this sixth case ending happens, what happens? Brahmana jigyasa. You have two words. Brahmana jigyasa. At this point of time, what happens is Brahmana jigyasa are compounded. When you compound, what happens is the declensions are dropped first. When you compound two words, declensions are dropped. So you drop Brahmana becomes Brahma. Then jigyasa becomes jigyasa. Brahma jigyasa. You compounded Brahma jigyasa. Subodhpati Brahma jigyasa. That's the word. That is why he says Tatacha karmani cheti nishedha prasarat jigyaseti. Brahma jigyaseti karmani seshti samaso siddhavati. That is how you get this word Brahma jigyasa. Kaschit tu etasmat eva videhe mokshe jnana karmanoho samuchayam iti pralapati. Some people talk uselessly. Pralapa means useless words. So some people speak uselessly. What do they say? They take this as the vidhi. Tasmat yudhyasva bharata. This itself as a rule. And Bhagavan is giving this order. For what? Now we said, Vichara janitena vijnanena badho. The shokan moha are removed through the knowledge which is gained through inquiry. So there is no rule here. No. First he gave the knowledge and now he is asking him to do the karma. Only the combination of knowledge and action will give you the result of moksha. This way, some people blabber. Pralapati, the proper translation is blabbering. Some people just blabber. Why do you say blabber? Because if it is gained through karma, then that is limited. We have already seen. If it is self, it can only be knowledge. If it is gained through knowledge, it is not limited. You don't need to depend upon karma. So, if it is not dependent upon karma, karma is not a vidhi. That is why he says tanna. That is not right. Why? Yujyasva iti ataha ityataha. In this word yujyasva, mokshasya jnana karma samuchaya sadhya apratitehe. There is no way we find a sadhya, means of establishing that which needs to be established, which is moksha. In this yujyasva word, we don't see any kind of a possibility. Vistarena chayetat agre. So this is not the be all end all answer. Vistarena chayetat, in detail, agre. In the later portion, Bhagavad Gita vachana virodhena. Whatever Bhagavan says, there is a contradiction with that words, those words. When you accept it to be combination of knowledge and karma action, then it is contradicting Bhagavan's words. Therefore, eva nirakarishyam. We will negate it with Bhagavan's word itself. We will see this. This is idea presented by the dual Vishtadvaitis. There is this Ramanujacharya, whose disciple is Vedanta Deshika, who wrote this Shatadoshini text. That's why I took his name also. So Shatadoshini text, who wrote that, he says that it should be combination of knowledge and action. Only then you will be able to gain the moksha. Which we negate, and Bhagavan Bhashyakara time and again negates with big commentaries this idea. We'll see this. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.